Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we deep dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Cismas, and today's guest is Bettina Berger, Head of Customer Success at TalentAdore. Bettina, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Irina. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The pleasure is mine. Bettina, working in the recruitment space during a time when many companies are facing economic uncertainty and cost-cutting measures, including layoffs, must bring some unique challenges. How have you been navigating all this, especially when it comes to leading customer success?
Very true. Very spot-on question, to be honest, because yes, we are facing the reality of these macroeconomic climate changes ourselves. And as TalentAdore is in the business of talent acquisition, then those are the departments, and obviously anything to do with the employees are the first ones to be hit by any cost-cutting measures. So we feel it and experience it firsthand from our customers. The silver lining is that we take this journey together actually with these customers who are impacted by such measures and who find themselves in these hard situations. One important thing to remember is that these financial difficulties are usually temporary. So we need to prepare also long-term with our customers. And this is a time actually which can be really well used in collaboration with our customers to prepare for what's going to come. How do they retain the talent that they have during these times? How will they get started with the rehiring afterwards? So this is where our focus and conversation with the customers usually shift. In these times, let's use it to prepare to do things smarter, to do things better. Then part of our solution is also talent management. So it's not just about the recruitment flow, which, like I said, is mainly in the focus of these conversations during these times.
I want to know more about your role at TalentAdore and how it ties the company's broader mission of bringing that human touch back to the world.
As you mentioned, I'm head of customer success, and the name might be a bit misleading in a way because in our function, we have actually more than just customer success managers. Okay. It's a pretty interesting setup. We have obviously CSMs or the customer success managers. Then we have technical project management, which takes care of the smooth delivery of all kinds of integration projects and making sure, especially during the onboarding and also later on, that the technical setup surrounding our solution is flowing well. And then we also have support. So basically all customer facing post-sales functions are super close to each other and they are working in a unison in our function. And well, I have the lucky role to actually make sure that the people who are in these teams are empowered and enabled, with the skills that they need to manage everyday customer interactions, whether it's about a project, it's about a support ticket or longer term strategy with the customer. So that's what gives me the most of the joy, to be honest, being the supporter to these team members. Because very often I find myself in a situation that obviously the individuals and the team members kind of already have a pretty good shape and pretty good idea in their mind where they want to go with their day, with a certain task, with a certain project. So sometimes, and most of the time, the biggest support I can give is following along with the ideas that they have and making sure that they have the necessary means, like I said, skills, resources, whatever they need at hand to make sure that they succeed. And bringing human touch back to recruitment, yes. That's a multi-level concept, to be honest, which makes it pretty easy, I would say, to bring into our day-to-day interactions internally and externally, because I guess what we all strive to do, regardless which industry and business we are in, is to make sure that whatever can be automated, whatever doesn't need to be paid so much attention to, is done in an efficient way. And we put our focus and majority of our resources to the moments which actually matter. And if you ask me what matters the most, is actually human interactions, the people. So that's what we are also trying to deliver with our solution, in a sense that we enable whoever are the users, whether it's a hiring manager or a recruiter, or the candidates applying for a position. And that's the kind of motto or the ethos that we are also trying to live in the company. Where are those little tweaks that can make our lives easier? So we can actually have maybe a bit longer coffee break together, chatting about just everyday lives. Or if it needed, then we can have maybe longer meeting sessions together with the team if we need to resolve an issue, which is much better done in a face-to-face or in a remote meeting than asynchronously.
We're going to go deeper into this automation part and how do you leverage it in order to make space for that human interaction. You mentioned that you have different teams under your supervision. What challenges do you face in aligning those teams, and how do you overcome the challenges so that you keep flawless, a seamless customer experience? How do they collaborate? How do they hand over things one from each other? How do they work together?
On paper, usually it sounds super seamless.
I know.
In reality and in practice, we definitely face sometimes some hiccups and, there's a gap there, there's a gap here. So amongst these three functions or sub-functions, so to say, within the team, it's fairly easier to work out maybe any process gaps that we have. Because how the flow goes is we have a new customer close by our sales colleagues, amazing CSMs take over the onboarding, and basically the full ownership from then on is with the customer success manager. And from the moment on that a customer is onboarded to the platform, that they also have access to our support team for the day-to-day user issues. I don't want to say help desk issues, but day-to-day technical user issues, they can then leverage our support team as well. And if the customer is looking to embed our solution deeper into their HR infrastructure, then we have the integration possibilities, and that's where the technical project manager comes into the picture. So if we put it on the customer lifecycle, it falls nicely into its places where the CSM, technical PM, and support comes in. Now, in reality, when we have a customer case, let's say, when a customer reaches out to support, it turns out to be something that, maybe it's a bigger topic. We need to dig a bit deeper, deep dive with the customer. And then the responsibility or the driver's seat is maybe passed on to another team, back to for example, the customer success manager. That's where we need to really rethink sometimes our internal processes, that how do we hand over these cases? When do we escalate? Do we need to escalate? Or is it a simple handover, for example, of a task that, hey, this thing came to the wrong channel. We need to rechannel it internally. And we are pretty agile in a sense that we can fairly quickly look at, okay, we had this process, and maybe in our next opportunity when we have a team meeting or some kind of a team setting, we can bring up this issue. And I'll say I'm in a lucky position that every team member feels pretty safe to share these, and also feels that it's pretty important to fix. That if they feel that, hey, last week, we had this case with XYZ customer and things didn't really flow that seamlessly, maybe we should revisit what we should have done. Then they bring it up pretty quickly that we need to look into it. So that flow of how it goes from the customer and from which channel the conversation comes in. Like I said, we have a nice chart and mapped this out, but it's something that we have to review. I'm not going to say that we have very set review cadences, because like I said, it happens more on an ad hoc basis. If something is not flowing well, then we don't really wait for any opportunity. We just simply, okay, this is something we notice and maybe we need to change, and pause for a second. Also, the good thing about the team is that they very often crave these sharing of experience and knowledge. And we have set up a daily possibility to just hop in to an office hour, so to say. It's a free space where any CSM or any member of the customer success organization just can hop in and put also their hand up that, hey, I have some questions. Who can join me? Who can hear me out? Or just simply, I need some time to talk to someone who can hop into this remote space.
You have a hybrid setup. Is it both the office and the remote?
Yes.
And those type of interactions are happening in the office?
We do have a hybrid setup, and we are on the journey as a company on the whole to become, how should I put, maybe a bit more face-to-face than remote, but face-to-face with a purpose, I should put. Oh. So not just meeting for the sake of, I don't know, counting the days of how many days we're actually spending in the office, but when we come to the office, then we have a purpose of why we are meeting. Or why we spend the time together. It can be also as simple as, hey, we just haven't spoken to each other for a long time, but usually we have some kind of a theme or like I said, a purpose to those face-to-face interactions. But I have to say that we do set it up for a remote as well, because the team is spread across Finland. basically,
Okay.
and not everyone can come to the office at the same time. So we always leave a possibility for remote. And we try to encourage that either it's fully remote or fully face-to-face, because mixing it is maybe not the best of those two words.
I'm super curious. I don't usually speak with CS leaders that also have this lens and this part of HR. Why do you say that mixing it might be the winning scenario? And I also want to ask, because again, you have the HR lens. How did the team take it when you mentioned about also some office hours, even if it's under the why and even if it's purpose? What were their objections? I would say, or did you have objections? How did you handle this? Because I know that, and it was also in the press that, okay, big companies decide to ask people to come back in the office. And I feel like there are two sides: the side of people who want to be in the office and they cannot be productive at home. And it's the opposite. But I think you are the first one that tells me that it's either or, and blending in might not be the winning case. Why is that?
Yes, and it very much comes down to the fact that when you are in face-to-face, when you have more than one person in the face-to-face setting, in the office, for example, and then there's, let's say, a third or fourth person joins remotely, then either you're automatically going to be glued on the screen and talk to the remote people, or then you are actually interacting more with the person who you are sitting within the same room with. So it's hard to make sure that either like each party is equally involved and they can equally share. I mean, you can make it happen, I'm not saying, but it definitely takes additional effort from the one who is maybe organizing the meeting or facilitating that meeting. So in that sense, it's better than if there is at least one remote participant. We try to keep then it fully remote. So it might sound a bit strange, but we have taken meetings from different rooms in the office, even if we had multiple participants to that same meeting in the office from different places, or at least everyone joins the same Zoom, Teams, whatever we are using link. So we have the same experience at least. And that reduces the risk of putting too much focus on either side, so to say, of the screen. And also because very often then, I'm sure many of us experience that if there is, let's say, one or like the minority are remote participants, then after a while it's like, oh yeah, we should ask them. Probably they have something to say, because you don't feel maybe that confident to speak up when you are joining remotely a meeting. And also the same can go actually, that if there are maybe two people face to face and there is a lively conversation going on between the remote participants, then the same can happen.
I also noticed we are in a remote setup. We do have some offices locally, but I also noticed that people are either preferring the remote or the face-to-face. And also in my case, mixing it brings down the productivity for me. So it's either or. So this part with I'd be in the office one per day, it kills the productivity for me, because those basically are the days where we just chit chat. Because it's simply not the same, but I couldn't actually frame it and understand why is that. And you put it nicely. So thanks for giving this perspective and explaining why this thing happen.
Sure.
I want to ask you about the team motivation and how do you manage to bring the team together? Also, given the cultural mix and the diversity that you are experiencing, how do you do that?
Yes. And I think I still owe you maybe some, how we handle the objections. Or did we have objections on finishing that last thought afterwards?
Yeah.
Yes. Now maybe to wrap that up quickly, that office and also the hybrid setup is that you are absolutely right. Those are not productive days in terms of getting maybe through your to-do list. And it's a journey. So it's work in progress, let's put it this way. But what we are trying to encourage people to change their mindset about it is that those days have a different task list. And one item on that list is to actually mix and mingle. And if you do that one thing, then your day is more productive. And then you can feel a bit more sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Those will not be the days, when you have to start creating materials and content and you finalize that. Probably you're better off scheduling those for another day. But those days, if you need, for example, some brainstorming with someone, then it happens also quicker in a face-to-face setting. So maybe rethinking what you schedule for that day that can help.
Yes, you have a point. And yeah, actually, when we are planning things together, we're reviewing as a team what things it's better to do it in the office where we are together than to do it remote. And yeah, now that you put it this way, you are right. It's about prioritizing or matching the type of initiatives that fall under this might be actually more productive if we do it face to face rather than in a remote setup. Yeah.
Yes. At least it's worth a try if it works. About the team diversity and motivation, my 2 cents on any well-working and well-oiled team is that diversity is basically that key recipe to have a well-oiled team, because they bring in different profiles, different experiences, and with that comes always different angles, different perspective, also how we approach a topic, maybe an issue or next steps where we want to take it. And I would say that has been a very specific focus, how we build the team to make sure that actually we keep the diversity in the team. And that is true for the customer success managers, the technical project management, and also support. It definitely requires a certain profile of person to do those tasks, but how the people actually get on with their tasks and how do they approach, for example, a customer request or maybe an escalation issue, that can be different. And that's where we encourage also, and we try to take our motivation from sharing these experiences, sharing maybe some bottlenecks in our day where we stumble upon an issue, and leveraging in the team that, okay, in that brainstorming, actually, it's not just about throwing out ideas, but we know that there will be people coming in with different perspectives, different backgrounds, or different experience how they handled a similar situation. And that's why, as I mentioned, the team actually set up these space in their calendar. There's a booked slot where they can just jump on to those conversations and leverage the different perspectives in the team. And it doesn't have to be from the same team. So it might be that we actually have a more technical issue on the support side, and still the support team members can get valuable ideas from any other team members as well. Now, I'm not going to lie also that it does bring some challenges on the other side as well, because it also means that people are motivated. They gather their strength, their inspiration in different ways. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm really not giving up on any one-on-one discussion and keeping it a regular one, because that's at least how I know how I can stay on top, so to say, on not just what's going on with the people, but what's going to make them on that same energy level. Or if, for example, their energy level dips for some reason, how to get it back? How can I support them? In some cases, it's literally as simple as, please just listen to me. I don't expect any answers from you. Just be my sounding board. And that's fair. But that's something that is a bit individual. And I feel that also as a leader of the customer success or the customer engagement function, I need to know that with every single person in our team, that not just the current status of their mindset and where they are in their life, where they are in their job, but also that if they encounter any hardships, then how can I be there for help? To be honest, there is no secret for me, just keeping the individual one-on-one conversation going and keeping it regular.
Kudos for that, because usually those are the first ones that are sacrificed. The first meetings that get out of the agenda or out of the calendar whenever you want to free up some time. So it's like, do we really need that one-on-one? And when the manager comes and asks you, do we really need that one-on-one? Is there anything urgent? It's like, no, it's not. Nothing is urgent, because it's not like you're going to allocate 1 hour when your manager is super busy doing other stuff to go and say, what? I just need 1 hour for someone to listen to me. Okay, I have therapy for this. So good on. For basically making sure and for prioritizing the well-being of your team. I know also from the manager's perspective that when things are crowded, I do usually sacrifice that part. Thanks for mentioning that it's important, and thanks for keeping it. Your team is very lucky. It's hard to find a manager who prioritizes and understands the value of those meetings and conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And if I can just say, it's also a bit reciprocal in a way, because yes, I have my direct manager that obviously I can also reach out to and speak to, but those are also those sessions when I can also share things with the team members. So it's not always just me offering, for example, my support most of the time. Yes, of course. But it's also that those are the moments when we build those connections and deepen those connections, when we are also both reassured that otherwise things run smoothly. Because if those one-on-ones are not working, or there is something, a sand in the cogwheel in those one-on-ones, that's when maybe some people might feel that we need to look at the operations also a bit more closely.
I want to ask you, speaking of things that end up on the customer success agenda, I know that a lot is from the CS, and somehow it's easy to get buried in the workload. So I'm curious now, how do you make sure that the team is actually focused on the things that really have an impact and to influence the KPIs of the business? How do you make sure that they stay focused and prioritize their work?
That is, I would say, something that we are striving to fine tune always a bit, because when the hectic times come, and like you said, the to-do list just gets longer and longer, the backlog doesn't seem to get shorter, that's when focus is lost very easily. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I would say that one thing that we've been practicing over the past now 12 months together with the CSMs is evaluating what is actually the level of criticality, what is the priority level of certain, especially last minute things that come in. Because most of the team members are pretty good at, and actually all of the team members are pretty good at setting their daily or weekly list of things. The issue comes when the last minute things with a seemingly higher priority comes on top of it, and it piles on top. And that's where I try to encourage them that be critical about that. If it comes last minute, does it really have to come on top of your list? Or is it something that maybe we can manage the expectations and actually put it number 4, number 5, or number 5 on your list? And that's, I think, because in this role, I feel that people who want to help other people are drawn and they enjoy the most themselves in a customer success manager role. So it's kind of instinctual that, oh, someone needs my help, someone needs my support and needs it immediately, then I'm going to jump on it. Well, pause for a second, reevaluate. Is it really that critical? Or maybe is there a better way to find that time critical support? Because then we also have a technical or a customer support team as well. So that's one exercise. I think it's useful to revise not just how you plan, how you build the perfect plan for the day or for the week, but actually how do you cope with those last minute, like I said, seemingly very urgent details and just revalidate them. On the other hand, where I said it's also work in progress, because we're trying to work on certain KPI reports as well that help on like individual customer portfolio level, where to put the attention, maybe not on that day, but more like, how is my portfolio looking? How is the overall health? Where do I have maybe some blind spots? And that's, I would say, a constant work in progress in a way that how do we display and how do we make sure that we actually measure the meaningful data and we have it put out and make it visible on meaningful charts and reports as well.
Speaking about those KPIs, what are the KPIs that are important for your roles?
We have, I would say, pretty traditional KPIs in that sense. So we need to make sure that churn rate is as low as possible. So churn rate is one of them. Then net retention revenue on a more broader term is definitely something that also at TalentAdore, the customer success team owns. And we are a revenue generating function where we contribute to revenue generation. Yes. So we do measure also our upsell MRR, and also because we are responsible for renewals and there can be expansion via renewals. So that also contributes to our part of the revenue generation as well. And on support side, the customer satisfaction score is the leading KPI.
I think you indirectly answered to my next question, because if you are a revenue generated stream, that means more probably it's not hard to sell internally the value of the CS department and everybody understands it. Would that be a correct assumption in your case?
It's easier, but it also, because there is one single KPI that the company usually attaches CS value to, it's also harder than to highlight the other aspect of what we are doing in a way that, but yes, we also do other things. So we are not only measured based on the revenue we generate. That's an important part. So don't get me wrong. That's also driving our focus. But also, for example, how many customer stories we lay down for the marketing team to make happen via referrals, or maybe how many referrals we provided in the pre-sale cycle to the sales managers. So those are also should add to the entire picture of the value of the team. But like you said, if it's just about a quick justification or quick validation of the value, we go back to the MRR. Yes.
And then curious, because I think you are the first one who speaks, yes, we are measured by the MRR, but it's not only that. Now I am curious, how do you build this narrative for the board of directors, or the CEO, to see that, okay, besides the MRR, which I know that everybody is taking a look at, those are 1,000 other things that help the business grow. How do you show this value?
What I find is probably the most effective tool is simply consistency. So to show the same results over the same time, so the same measurements over and over again. So we can basically build up the same trends when it comes to the other metrics as well that we can, or the customer success value can be measured on. And then it takes, yes, some time, but also, like I said, if we measure the same data points and if you put them on the same timeline, then it will show that basically MRR is one part of it. And then the whole value is made up of multiple metrics, not just that one. We also measure, for example, like I said, the customer satisfaction score. We also share very regularly the data on our first median response, how good that is, even full resolution time. When we look at, for example, the support performance side, that is something that we regularly come back to. And it's also included in our quarterly, we are following the EOS framework. So the quarterly rocks that we have as well. And because I think it's also something that we should be sharing to other stakeholders, that's also part of the board meetings that we are sharing in terms of data and performance.
You mentioned at the beginning, the thing that can be automated should be automated so that you have quality time to spend with your customers. And you emphasize that proactiveness in supporting them along the journey. I want to ask you, how do you leverage technology and the AI part, but not only in your day-to-day CS operation?
Yes, that is coming together with an exciting next chapter in our CS journey, because we have just made the foundations of the first product-led growth, so PIG elements in our post-sales cycle. So that basically brings along with itself that now how we are going to build on that automation. So in short, we implemented self-servicing onboarding for the long tail and the small customer segment, so to say. And that has been a project of the past quarter. So first stepping stone is there. And what I mean by self-servicing onboarding is that we hope that it is going to be truly follow this path that you're a new user. And if you followed every single step, by the end of it, you should be able to start using the system. So start creating job ads, start screening applications as you receive them. And we have, of course, some internal flows and automations beforehand in our customer success tool, but it still required always a bit of a manual interaction because, like I said, especially at the beginning of the customer journey, we also had many manual steps. So now, as that is going to be much more automated for most of the cases, we are forced a little bit to also then think the next steps in the engagement. So like, wonderful, onboarding is done now. What is the next step in the product usage? How do we make sure that adoption is ramping up fast enough? And then we hold hands with the customers also in the other stages, whether they want to expand. And that's where, for example, the product growth elements are also implemented in this quarter for the expansion stage of the life cycle as well. The beauty of that is that now we will have the product usage data based on how the product-led growth flow is being used by our users. And that's where I will really see the power of automation, because up until now, what we have been automating in terms of the customer journey was mainly based on assumptions, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And yes, we've used customer data, but what will really bring the real validation is to see that how the user actually goes through this flow that we are building right now. And that's when we can really validate. In terms of AI, our team leans on AI mainly when it comes to be honest, at the moment, content generation for internal purposes mainly. So that is something that I would say we have been putting more emphasis on making sure that our users leverage the AI or the AI powered functionalities in our solutions. And we've been just in that discussion that internally also, now it's time that we have all the tools and we need to embed it more in our day-to-day activities. It's going to be a very interesting next steps to see that how we come across this dilemma of where do we use AI? Where does it make sense? So we still don't lose that human touch that is the core of our company as well.
Bettina, it was a pleasure talking to you today. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you, who has had the biggest influence on your career and what's the best piece of advice they've given to you that still sticks up until today?
Oh, great question. I have many things popping up in my head, but I'm going to pick one. And that is an amazing customer success leader, one of my former bosses, Gary Evans, who told me a very simple sentence repeatedly, and it stuck with me, that the answer is always yes. That is something that whenever I just started a sentence or we started a meeting, he said, remember, the answer is always yes. And that's an important sentence that has stuck with me, and I adopted also in my interactions with my team. So they know that it's not just about being available, but being accessible always. There is always a solution. There is always something that we can figure out and come across with. And if you need, I'm there. So yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. And a big thank you to all our listeners. Until next time, stay safe and keep mastering customer success.
Thank you, Irina. It's been a great talking to you.